Hello and welcome to the analysis of the Hindu newspaper dated February 23rd, 2023. In this video, we are going to talk about two important newspaper articles which are going to be very important, very significant for the civil services examination. So let's start this video with the first important newspaper article. So the first newspaper article talks about some of the statements which have been made by the IMF managing director, that is Kristalina Georgieva. Now, these kinds of statements are very important in order to understand what kind of economy India is going to become, right? Now, this particular newspaper article becomes important for the GS paper 3, that is Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resources, growth, development and employment. First, let's understand the context of it and then we will talk about the major pointers in this particular newspaper article. Now, India continues to remain a relative bright spot in the world economy according to the IMF and will alone contribute 15% of the global growth in 2023, says the managing director of IMF, that is Kristalina Georgieva, right? So how is it going to happen? This is going to happen because of the twin factors. Now, the twin factors are the growth rate predictions according to the IMF will of 2022 to 2023, that is this particular session or this particular financial year is going to be 6.8%, and in financial year 2023 to 2024 it is going to come down to 6.41%, but it is way above the global average. Now, these two things will lead to India providing about 15% of the global growth in 2023, because the other parts of the economy or the other economies are going to slow down. Now, India is registering, right, it is registering 6.8% growth in 2022 to 2023. In 2023 to 2024, it is registering 6.1%. On the other hand, world economy is registering 3.4% in 2022 and 2.9% in 2023, which is relatively very low as compared to India. And that is why this particular growth expectations are there. So while digitization pulled out the world's fifth largest economy from the pandemic lows, prudent fiscal policy and significant financing for capital investments provided in the next year's budget will help sustain the growth momentum according to the IMF, right? Here we are talking about three factors. First one is that how we got out of the pandemic. We got out of the pandemic because of the digitization. Second is that we have a very prudent fiscal policy right now. The government is doing a lot for the country. And the third one is that there is a significant financing for the capital investment. Capital investments like what? Infrastructure, roads, all of these are going to be built up. And this will lead to growth aspects of like 6.8% and 6.1%, right? Which is going to be a major impetus for the growth in India. Now, according to Georgieva, who is the managing director, India has taken a brave step with the digital ID that put the foundation for the digitization on the scale we see today. And COVID played the role of trigger for advancing digitization because it made it both necessary and possible to deliver public support to households and to businesses using the digital platforms, right? So these are some of the statements which have been made by the managing director of the IMF, that is Kristalina Georgieva, and these statements become very important for us. Now, this is not a report. We will now IMF also presents some of the reports, but this is not the part of any kind of report. But these statements are very noteworthy in order to understand what are the predictions of the IMF regarding the forecast of what of the growth rate, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article. Let's now head to the next important newspaper article. Now, this particular newspaper article becomes very important for us because it helps in understanding the development of politics and policies of developed and developing countries in India's interest. Now, this particular section is also part of the GS paper 2. That is why it becomes very important for us to understand the French troops withdrawal from the Burkina Faso. If we need to understand the politics of Burkina Faso as well as the Western African nations. Let's first understand the story behind it, and then we will talk about why France is withdrawing, why did Burkina Faso end the particular military agreement with the France, and we will also talk about the Russian involvement in the country of Burkina Faso. Now, Burkina Faso is a very small country in the Africa, surrounded by basically six countries, including Niger, Ivory Coast, and Togo, and there are three other countries, right? You need not to remember the names of the country. What's important is to know the location of Burkina Faso. It is located in the Western Africa, right? So, so now we have talked about the location. Let's now talk about the context of this particular newspaper article. So what happened is that on February 19, Burkina Faso announced an official end to operations led by France in the country. Now, the France had signed a military agreement with Burkina Faso in 2018 to achieve stability against the threat of Islamist militant groups. So, Islamist militant groups are present in the Western African nations, and Burkina Faso is no exception to it. And that is why Burkina Faso government signed an agreement or military agreement with the France for their protection, as well as to achieve the stability in the country. Now, France signed a series of similar agreements with other West African nations, including Mali, who terminated the operation in late 2022. But now this particular military agreement with Burkina Faso has also been terminated on January 20th around, right? Now, France has been critical of the Russian inroads into Africa. There are very much problems for the France in Africa. What are the main problems? First problem is that the Russian involvement in the Africa has increased by after 2020. Now, the France has accused the Russian private military company, that is Wagner Group, for working closely with the military governments in the West Africa. They are not siding with the democracies, they are siding with the military governments. That becomes a big problem. Now, Wagner Group is the group from the Russia, and we have seen involvement in the Ukraine war as well of the Wagner Group in the Donbass region. Now, on January 23, Burkina Faso's military government announced its decision to end the military agreement with France and called on Paris to withdraw its troops within a month. Now, Burkinabe government spokesperson said that the military government and the country wanted themselves to be prime actors in the recapture of our territory, and which was controlled by the Islamist militant group. And on January 26, France agreed to withdraw its troops from the Burkina Faso. Now, this has been a story so far. Now, what is the exact reason behind the Burkina Faso ending this particular military agreement? So, the prime reason behind it is the failure of the counter-insurgency operation in the Sahel region against the Islamist groups by the France. Now, Islamist insurgency has surged since 2015, that is increased since 2015 and has fueled two coups in Burkina Faso last year, and the violence linked to the Al-Qaeda and the Islamist groups has killed thousands and forced many 2 million to flee their homes in the country. Now, this is the present state of the country, and France has failed to control this particular thing. And secondly, an Islamist insurgency kept intensifying, and the France military presence in the Burkina Faso came under scrutiny because after the second coup in September 2022, anti-France protests have been going on, and this has led to increasing pro-Russia sentiment in this particular region. And apart from it, there has also been the Chinese involvement in this particular area. And finally, the ruling military junta of the Burkina Faso was looking beyond its traditional allies. Traditional allies what? France, and the new allies are like countries like Russia and China. They are more reliable according to the Burkina Faso government. Now, is there Russian involvement in this particular region? Absolutely yes. Now, this particular engagement with the military governments by the Russians has increased since 2022. And following Ouagadougou is the capital of Burkina Faso, right? Now, following Ouagadougou's announcement of the termination of the France operations, Burkinabe Prime Minister Apollinaire Kailen D. Tambele termed Russia a reasonable choice, and simultaneously Moscow has been quoting African countries in 2023 alone. And in 2023 alone, Russian Foreign Minister, that is Sergei Lavrov, have visited 7 countries in Africa, that is Angola, Eswatini, South Africa, Eritrea, Mali, Sudan, and Mauritania. All of these countries have been visited by the Russian foreign minister, which shows that they have increased presence in this particular region, right? Now, what next for the France and Burkina Faso? So basically, the Paris has accepted the military government's decision, which marks a significant change in its West Africa approach. And Burkina Faso, in the absence of the France troops, the alleged Russian mercenaries like the Wagner Group may fill the security void as part of its bid to enhance military engagements in the continent. However, the new developments are unlikely to address the insurgency and consequent insecurity in this particular region. This particular region is full of insurgent of Islamic what of all the Islamic groups which are basically fighting against each other. So what is going to happen in this region? Nothing is going to happen. Only the France is going to get replaced by Russia and China, right? This is happening. Now India has also significant involvement in this particular region, basically in the countries like Sudan and Congo. But in the countries like these Western African nations, India does not have any kind of significant presence in the form of UN peacekeeping forces, right? So the Russian and the Chinese involvement is getting increased in this particular region. They are looking for all the natural resources. They will get their work done. And the France and the West is moving out of Africa, right? So this is it regarding this particular newspaper article, and this is it for the day. Thank you from my side. Do like and share the video and subscribe to this channel. Have a good day. Bye.